Jakob Ludwig Felix Mendelssohn Bartholdy, the 3rd of February, 1809 to the 4th of November, 1847, was a German composer, pianist, organist, and conductor of the early Romantic period. Born into a prominent family of Jewish descent that had converted to Lutheranism prior to his birth, he was the grandson of the philosopher Moses Mendelssohn. Displaying prodigious musical talent from childhood, Mendelssohn began composing at age 9 and produced works of lasting significance by his mid-teens, including the String Octet, Op. 20, at 16. At 20, he conducted the first Berlin performance of Johann Sebastian Bach's Street Matthew Passion since the composer's death, initiating a widespread revival of Bach's music in the 19th century. Mendelssohn's oeuvre encompasses approximately 750 compositions across genres such as symphonies, concertos, oratorios, chamber music, and solo piano pieces, with particularly renowned examples including the Overture and incidental music to A Midsummer Night's Dream, notably the Wedding March, the Symphony No. 4 Italian, the Violin Concerto in E minor, Op. 64, and the Oratorio Elijah. As music director of the Leipzig Gewandhaus Orchestra from 1835 and co-founder of the Leipzig Conservatory in 1843, now the University of Music and Theatre Felix Mendelssohn Bartholdy, he elevated musical standards and education in Germany. Life and career. Childhood and family background. Felix Mendelssohn was born on the 3rd of February, 1809 in Hamburg, then an independent city-state, to Abraham Mendelssohn Bartholdy, 1776 to 1835, a banker and son of the Jewish Enlightenment philosopher Moses Mendelssohn, 1729 to 1786, and Lee, Felicia Pauline, Salomon, 1777 to 1842, a musician from the prominent Leipzig banking family and granddaughter of Daniel Leipzig. The Mendelssohns were part of Berlin's assimilated Jewish elite, with Abraham managing finances for the Prussian court and Lee providing early musical instruction to her children on piano and voice. The family relocated from Hamburg to Berlin around 1811 to 1812 amid the disruptions of the Napoleonic Wars, settling into a cultured household that emphasized intellectual and artistic pursuits over religious observance. Abraham and Lee raised their 4 children, Fanny, born 1805, Felix, born 1809, Rebecca, born 1811, and Paul, born 1812, in a secular environment influenced by Enlightenment rationalism, with Moses Mendelssohn's writings promoting Jewish emancipation but also tolerance toward Christianity. In pursuit of social integration and to distance themselves from Jewish identity amid rising Prussian restrictions on Jews, the family underwent conversion to Protestantism. The children were baptized into the Reformed Church on the 9th of December, 1816, followed by the parents in 1822, at which point Abraham adopted the additional surname Bartholdy from his brother-in-law's estate, to signify a break from their heritage. This conversion reflected pragmatic assimilation rather than deep theological conviction, as Abraham instructed his children to view Christianity as a cultural formality enabling full participation in German society. Musical education and early prodigy. Felix Mendelssohn began his musical education at age 6 with piano lessons from his mother, Lee Mendelssohn, an accomplished pianist herself. By age 7, he received further piano instruction from Marie Bigot during a family visit to Paris. In 1817, at around age 8, he started composition studies with Carl Friedrich Zelter, director of the Berlin Singakademie, who emphasized classical models like Bach and instilled rigorous counterpoint training. Mendelssohn also studied violin under Eduard Rietz, for whom he later composed a concerto in 1822. Recognized as a prodigy, Mendelssohn made his first public appearance at age 9 in 1818, participating in a chamber music concert. He began composing around age 10, producing works including early symphonies and chamber pieces influenced by Mozart and Beethoven. Between ages 12 and 14, 1821 to 1823, he wrote 12 string symphonies for private family performances at the Mendelssohn home in Berlin. His early output accelerated. At 13, he completed his first published work, a piano quartet, Op. 1, 1822. At 15, his Symphony No. 1 in C minor, Op. 11, 1824, and at 16, the String Octet in E-flat major, Op. 20, 1825, often hailed as a masterpiece. These private concerts, starting around 1820, showcased his growing repertoire to invited guests, including Goethe, whom he impressed during a 1821 visit. Despite his parents' caution against premature public exploitation, Mendelssohn's technical proficiency and inventive style marked him as a phenomenon comparable to Mozart in precocity. Early professional successes. Mendelssohn's early professional successes began in the mid-1820s with compositions that showcased his advanced technique and originality. In 1825, at age 16, he completed the octet for strings in E-flat major, Op. 20, a work praised for its symphonic scope and innovative use of chamber forces, often considered a breakthrough in his oeuvre. His Overture to a Midsummer Night's Dream, composed in 1826 at age 17, premiered publicly on February 20, 1827, in Stettin under Carl Loew's direction, earning acclaim for its vivid programmatic depiction of Shakespeare's comedy and establishing Mendelssohn's reputation for orchestral color and fantasy. A landmark conducting achievement occurred on March 11, 1829, when Mendelssohn, then 20, led the Berlin premiere of Johann Sebastian Bach's Street Matthew Passion at the Singakademie, the first performance since 1785 and nearly a century after its composition. Working from incomplete manuscripts and preparing a performing edition, he conducted a chorus of over 150 and orchestra, reviving public interest in Bach's choral works and influencing the Bach Revival movement. This event, attended by 1,000 people, highlighted Mendelssohn's scholarly rigor and interpretive insight, bridging classical and romantic eras. These accomplishments, including early publications like his Piano Concerto No. 1 in G minor, Op. 25, premiered 1831 but composed earlier, positioned Mendelssohn as a leading young composer and performer in Berlin's musical circles by his early 20s. Appointments in Düsseldorf and Leipzig. In October 1833, Mendelssohn accepted his first paid professional appointment as municipal music director in Düsseldorf, a position he held until 1835. His responsibilities included directing the theatre orchestra, supervising church music primarily in Roman Catholic institutions, and preparing major choral works annually for performances. During this period, he conducted the Lower Rhenish Music Festival, commencing with Handel's Israel in Egypt. Mendelssohn's tenure in Düsseldorf was marked by administrative challenges, including disputes over opera repertoire and the demands of routine duties, leading to his resignation at the end of 1834 amid frustrations with the city's provincial outlook. He departed for Leipzig in 1835, where he was appointed director of the Gewandhaus Orchestra starting in the 1835 to 1836 season, a role he maintained until his death in 1847. Under Mendelssohn's leadership, the Gewandhaus Orchestra achieved elevated standards of professionalism and musical precision, transforming it into a premier cultural institution. He broadened the repertoire by programming works of Mozart, Beethoven, and Bach alongside contemporary pieces, premiering several symphonies by Robert Schumann and his own violin concerto in E minor. Mendelssohn also performed as a pianist, featuring his own concertos and those of classical masters. In 1843, Mendelssohn co-founded the Leipzig Conservatory, Germany's first institution of its kind, serving as its inaugural director and teaching composition and ensemble playing, thereby institutionalizing advanced musical education in the city. His efforts decisively shaped Leipzig's musical landscape, fostering a legacy of excellence in orchestral performance and training. International engagements and Britain. Mendelssohn embarked on his first major international tour in 1829, beginning with Britain following the Berlin revival of Bach's Street Matthew Passion. In London, he conducted his Symphony No. 1 in C minor, Op. 11, at a Philharmonic Society concert on May 25, earning acclaim from audiences and musicians alike. He then explored Scotland, visiting Edinburgh's Holyrood Palace and the Western Isles, experiences that directly inspired the concert overture The Hebrides, Op. 26, completed 1830, and Symphony No. 3 in A minor, Op. 56, Scottish, premiered 1842. A brief extension to Wales further broadened his exposure to British landscapes and folklore. From late 1830 to 1831, Mendelssohn extended his travels to continental Europe, spending months in Italy, arriving in Rome on November 1, 1830, after stops in Florence and Naples, and Switzerland, where alpine hikes influenced his compositions. These journeys yielded sketches for Symphony No. 4 in A major, Op. 90, Italian, premiered London 1833, and deepened connections with European artistic circles, including meetings with Goethe's contemporaries. He proceeded to Paris before returning north. Britain remained Mendelssohn's most frequent destination, with 10 visits overall, where he cultivated enduring ties through conducting and social engagements. He directed multiple Philharmonic Society concerts, including the London premiere of his Italian Symphony on May 13, 1833, at Hanover Square Rooms. During his 1842 trip, he performed privately for Queen Victoria and Prince Albert at Buckingham Palace, who admired his playing of his Lieder one word and joined him in singing parts from his works. In 1844, on his 8th visit, he led 5 Philharmonic programs, solidifying his influence on British orchestral standards. The peak of his British engagements came at the 1846 Birmingham Triennial Music Festival, where he conducted the world premiere of his oratorio Elijah, Op. 70, on August 26 in Birmingham Town Hall. Featuring an orchestra of 125 musicians and a chorus of 271 singers, the performance drew 2,000 attendees and received immediate ovations, with the audience demanding repeats of key sections like the chorus and Then Shall Your Light Break Forth. This triumph, prepared over a decade and rooted in biblical texts, enhanced Mendelssohn's stature in England, where choral festivals thrived, and prompted revisions for subsequent editions. His final visit in May 1847 included another palace audience with the Queen, performing excerpts from Elijah. Final years and death. Mendelssohn's final years involved sustained high-intensity work as conductor of the Leipzig Gewandhaus Orchestra and director of the Leipzig Conservatory, which he co-founded in 1843, alongside frequent international travel, particularly to Britain for conducting engagements at music festivals. These activities, combined with composing major works like the oratorio Elijah premiered in Birmingham on August 26, 1846, contributed to chronic exhaustion and early signs of neurological decline, including fatigue and sensitivity to cold. A demanding tour of England in early 1847 further weakened him physically. The abrupt death of his sister Fanny on May 14, 1847, from a ruptured cerebral aneurysm devastated Mendelssohn, precipitating acute emotional and physical deterioration marked by depression, weakness, and stepwise neurological progression such as gait instability and loss of hand sensation. This familial pattern of early neurological illness, evident also in Fanny's sudden demise, intensified his symptoms amid ongoing professional pressures. In October 1847, Mendelssohn suffered an initial apoplectic seizure, followed by further relapses. He died on November 4, 1847, in Leipzig at age 38 from a series of strokes, with post-mortem examination confirming cerebral pathology consistent with nervous stroke diagnoses by attending physicians. His remains were interred in the family vault at the Dreifaultig-Kiez-Friedhof in Berlin. Personal life. Religious identity and heritage. Felix Mendelssohn was born on February 3, 1809, in Hamburg into a family of Jewish descent, with his paternal grandfather being the Enlightenment philosopher Moses Mendelssohn, 1729–1786, a prominent figure in Jewish intellectual history known for advocating religious tolerance and rationalism. His parents, Abraham Mendelssohn Bartholdy and Lee Salomon Mendelssohn, initially raised Felix and his siblings without formal religious instruction, reflecting the family's emphasis on secular education and cultural assimilation amid the social constraints on Jews in early 19th century Prussia. On March 21, 1816, at the age of 7, Felix was baptized into the Protestant Reformed Church in a private ceremony at the family's Berlin home. Along with his sister Fanny and brothers Paul and Rebecca, his parents followed with their own conversion in 1822, adopting the additional surname Bartholdy to signify a deliberate separation from Jewish heritage. Abraham Mendelssohn, a banker influenced by Enlightenment humanism, viewed Christianity not primarily through dogmatic lenses but as a vehicle for ethical and cultural integration, driven by practical considerations such as professional opportunities and evasion of anti-Semitic barriers in German society, where Jews were often excluded from full civic participation. This conversion was strategic yet substantive, as evidenced by the family's subsequent embrace of Lutheran practices, though critics have noted it as emblematic of broader Jewish assimilation pressures rather than unqualified theological conviction. Throughout his adult life, Mendelssohn actively practiced Lutheranism, regularly attending services, incorporating Christian devotional elements into his correspondence, such as invoking the initials of VDMJ. Verbum Domini manit in aeternum, the word of the Lord endures forever, and composing works like the Oratorio St. Paul, 1836, and Elijah, 1846, which drew on biblical narratives to affirm Protestant themes of redemption and faith. Despite his conforming Christian identity, Mendelssohn remained aware of his Jewish roots, expressing pride in his grandfather's legacy while rejecting any reversion to Judaism. Posthumously, amid rising 19th-century anti-Semitism, figures like Richard Wagner labeled him indelibly Jewish, based on ancestry alone, disregarding his baptism and lifelong adherence to Christianity. This duality underscores a heritage shaped by familial choice for assimilation, where Mendelssohn's public persona and oeuvre aligned decisively with Lutheran traditions rather than Jewish observance. Marriage, children, and family dynamics. Felix Mendelssohn married Cécile Charlotte Sophie Jean Renaud, the daughter of a French Reformed Church pastor from a Huguenot family, on the 28th of March, 1837 at the French Reformed Church in Frankfurt on Main. The couple had met earlier that year during Mendelssohn's visit to Frankfurt and became engaged in September 1836, with Mendelssohn's sister Fanny expressing strong approval of Cécile upon first meeting her. Cécile, born on the 10th of October, 1817, was 19 years old at the time of the wedding, 10 years younger than Mendelssohn. The newlyweds documented their honeymoon travels through southern Germany, the Rhineland, and the Black Forest in a shared diary, supplemented by letters to their families that reveal mutual contentment and shared pursuits such as drawing, reading, and outdoor activities. Their union provided Mendelssohn with domestic stability amid his intensifying professional obligations, including his appointments in Düsseldorf and later Leipzig. Mendelssohn and Cécile had 5 children: Carl Wolfgang Paul, born the 7th of February, 1838, Marie Pauline Helene, born 1840, Paul, born 1841, Felix, born 1844, and Rika, also known as Lily, born 1846. The family settled in Leipzig following Mendelssohn's establishment of the conservatorium there in 1843, where Cécile oversaw the household and upbringing of the children, fostering an environment conducive to Mendelssohn's creative and conducting work. Mendelssohn demonstrated deep familial devotion, frequently corresponding with Cécile during his travels across Europe for performances and commissions, with surviving letters attesting to his affection for her and their offspring. This correspondence underscores a harmonious dynamic, with Cécile's role as homemaker enabling Mendelssohn's focus on music while he contributed to family decisions and leisure. Cécile survived Mendelssohn by 6 years, passing away on the 25th of September, 1853 in Frankfurt. Personality and relationships with contemporaries. Felix Mendelssohn exhibited a refined and aristocratic demeanor, often described by contemporaries as cheerful, uninhibited, and industrious, blending classical poise with romantic expressiveness. His sunny disposition contrasted with the more tempestuous personalities of figures like Beethoven, though he could display irritability and moodiness under stress, particularly in professional demands. This mercurial quality, noted in biographical accounts, reflected his high-strung nature amid prolific output and conducting responsibilities. Mendelssohn formed a profound early friendship with Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, introduced in 1821 at age 12 by his teacher Carl Friedrich Zelter. Goethe, then 72, tested the young prodigy's skills akin to Mozart's and developed an enduring bond marked by mutual intellectual exchange, lasting until Goethe's death in 1832. In 1830, at 21, Mendelssohn revisited Goethe, engaging in daily conversations and musical performances that underscored the poet's admiration for his talent. His relationship with Robert Schumann evolved from professional acquaintance upon meeting in Leipzig on August 31, 1835, to intimate friendship, with Schumann praising Mendelssohn's supportiveness and conducting prowess while Mendelssohn reciprocated by programming Schumann's works. This mutual respect persisted, evidenced by correspondence and collaborative circles involving Clara Schumann, though tempered by Schumann's later mental decline. Interactions with Richard Wagner were initially cordial yet strained. In 1836, the 23-year-old Wagner submitted his C major symphony for Mendelssohn's review in Leipzig, seeking endorsement, but Wagner later vilified Mendelssohn posthumously in the 1850 essay Judaism in Music, critiquing his music as superficial and emblematic of Jewish influence, amid broader anti-Semitic animus. Mendelssohn's conservative style, prioritizing clarity over Wagnerian innovation, fueled such ideological clashes with more radical contemporaries like Liszt and Berlioz. Compositional work. Style, influences, and innovations. Mendelssohn's compositional style bridged classical restraint and romantic lyricism, emphasizing formal clarity, melodic elegance, and contrapuntal refinement while incorporating expressive programmatic elements inspired by literature, nature, and mythology. His works favored balanced structures over dramatic rupture, with transparent orchestration that highlighted instrumental color without excess, as seen in the fairy-like vivacity of his scherzos and the flowing lines of his concertos. This approach yielded music of poised intensity, contrasting the more turbulent emotionalism of contemporaries like Berlioz or Wagner. Major influences included the contrapuntal rigor of Johann Sebastian Bach, whose techniques shaped Mendelssohn's choral writing and fugal passages, particularly evident in the chorale elaborations of his Reformation Symphony, Op. 107, premiered 1832. Training under Carl Friedrich Zelter instilled mastery of Baroque and classical models from Bach, Handel, Haydn, and Mozart, fostering sonata-style precision and polyphonic skill from an early age. The late Beethoven exerted a profound impact, with his structural depth and motivic development permeating Mendelssohn's generation, though Mendelssohn tempered this with lighter, more classical poise rather than Beethoven's heroic struggle. Among his innovations, Mendelssohn advanced concerto form in the violin concerto in E minor, Op. 64, 1844, by dispensing with the orchestral tutti opening, integrating solo entry seamlessly, omitting a traditional cadenza, and linking movements via extended transitions for greater continuity. His String Octet, Op. 20, 1825, expanded chamber music's expressive range, treating 8 strings as a miniature orchestra with symphonic development and dynamic contrasts beyond paired quartets. In organ sonatas, Op. 65, 1845, he reimagined traditional forms through dynamic contrasts and theological integration, adapting sonata allegro principles to liturgical depth. While not revolutionizing orchestration, Mendelssohn adhered to refined transparency over bold experimentation. His programmatic overtures, such as the Hebrides, Op. 26, 1830, vividly evoked seascapes through fluid, descriptive textures. Orchestral compositions. Mendelssohn produced a series of symphonies, concertos, and concert overtures that exemplify his command of classical forms infused with romantic programmatic elements. His orchestral output includes 5 mature numbered symphonies, alongside earlier string symphonies and various solo concertos, often premiered under his own direction with leading ensembles like the Leipzig Gewandhaus Orchestra. These works demonstrate his skill in orchestration, balancing transparency and emotional depth, with frequent use of cyclic themes and vivid depictions of landscapes or literary inspirations. Among the symphonies, the Symphony Number 4 in A major, Op. 90, known as the Italian, draws from Mendelssohn's 1830 to 1831 tour of Italy, capturing the vitality of Roman carnivals and pastoral scenes in its 4 movements. Sketched during the trip and completed in 1833, it received its premiere in London on March 13, 1833, conducted by the composer himself. The Symphony No. 3 in A minor, Op. 56, dubbed the Scottish, was inspired by a 1829 visit to Scotland, particularly the ruins of Holyrood Chapel, and evokes misty highlands through its brooding introduction and folk-like melodies. Composed in 1842, it premiered in Leipzig that same year. The Symphony No. 5 in D minor, Op. 107, The Reformation, written in 1830 to commemorate the 300th anniversary of the Augsburg Confession, features a chorale based on Ein Fest Berg and was not performed until 1868, after Mendelssohn's death. Mendelssohn's concertos highlight virtuosic writing tailored for specific performers. The Violin Concerto in E minor, Op. 64, his final orchestral work, was composed in 1844 for Ferdinand David, concertmaster of the Leipzig Gewandhaus Orchestra, with whom Mendelssohn collaborated closely. It premiered on March 13, 1845, in Leipzig under Niels Wilhelm Gade's direction due to Mendelssohn's illness. Structured in 3 connected movements without pauses, it integrates lyrical themes and demands technical precision from the soloist. The Piano Concerto No. 1 in G minor, Op. 25, dates to 1831 and was first performed in Munich that year, while the No. 2 in D minor, Op. 40, followed in 1837, premiered in Birmingham, England, with Mendelssohn as soloist. Concert overtures form a significant portion of his orchestral legacy, often programmatically linked to literature or nature. The Overture to A Midsummer Night's Dream, Op. 21, composed in 1826 at age 17, vividly portrays Shakespeare's fairy realm through shimmering strings and fairy horn calls, predating the full incidental music of 1842. The Hebrides Overture, Op. 26, also called Fingal's Cave, inspired by a 1829 visit to Staffa Island off Scotland, was sketched in 1830 and revised for its 1832 premiere in London, evoking ocean swells with undulating strings and wind motifs. The Ruy Blos Overture, Op. 95, written in 1839 as prelude to Victor Hugo's play, contrasts dramatic tension with triumphant brass, reflecting the drama's intrigue.